Hello. Today I will be discussing the Great Barrier Reef and how human activity has put this global landmark in dire jeopardy. The Great Barrier Reef is an incredible natural landmark, recognized across the world. It's the largest interconnected network of living creatures on the globe, being made up of nearly 3,000 individual reefs stretching 1,400 miles along the Australian coastline. Its northernmost point reaches the very tip of Queensland, running about halfway down the east coast of the island. It is so large that it can be seen from space, here being visible in a beautiful bright turquoise color. It's also so dense that it houses its own unique ecosystem. The reef is one of the most biologically diverse places in the world, supporting thousands of different species of fish, crustaceans, coral, and plant life. However, recent human activity has caused massive destruction in the reef. Since 1987, the Great Barrier Reef has lost 50% of its coral cover, which is the primary form of life supporting the ecosystem. Coral provides food, shelter, and nutrition for the plant and animal life living within the reef. Coral is to a reef what trees are to a forest. Without it, the ecosystem just ceases to exist. The level of coral death researchers have observed is incredibly drastic and has impacted vast swaths of the reef. It's getting harder and harder to find parts of the reef untouched by coral death. Vast fields of dead coral are now commonplace on the Great Barrier Reef and can be seen in photos taken by tourists, like this one. This photo is currently featured on Google Maps when searching for the Great Barrier Reef. On the surface, it looks like a typical photo one might take on vacation, albeit a really good one, featuring this woman having a fantastic time swimming around with a sea turtle, going through this iridescent tropical sea. It looks like a paradise. However, upon closer inspection, it's plain to see that the coral field behind her is completely dead. Unfortunately, scenes like this are not uncommon within the Great Barrier Reef anymore. Coral reefs make up just 1% of the world's ocean floor, but contain 25% of every species found in the entire ocean. This means that the dozens of species of plants, animals, and microorganisms unique to the Great Barrier Reef alone are in serious danger of becoming extinct with the loss of just a single habitat. The possibility of mass extinction threatens to make this already fragile ecosystem even less resilient to changing conditions. The loss of any amount of coral reef threatens the entire biodiversity of the region. But reef loss doesn't just affect the natural world. Australia alone stands to lose over $3 billion in tourism revenue, constituting a major portion of the economy in the Northeast. The reef is also so massive and so resilient that it protects the coastline from tropical storms and floods, which could greatly impact a region heavy with coastal agriculture industry, mainly sugar. Unfortunately, it used to protect the coastline from tropical storms. By far, in the past 30 years, the largest contributor to reef destruction has been from cyclone damage. Now, cyclone damage has always played a role. The reef grows back and some of it's destroyed, but this is far more severe than usual. A 2012 study found that cyclones were responsible for approximately 48% of all reef loss from 1987 to 2012. That's a quarter of the existing reef back in 1987 completely gone simply from cyclones. This is an incredibly alarming figure. Typical cyclones in this region are, tropical cyclones in this region are not a new phenomenon. They are a regular seasonal occurrence that the aquatic ecosystem has always had to deal with. The Great Barrier Reef has a natural resiliency to storms, being so strong that it actually protects the coastline from severe weather. This observation is alarming because it shows how climate change has made traditional storm seasons far more severe. It's an easily observable phenomenon that human-motivated climate change has led to stronger storms. Increased temperature fluctuations brought about by glacial melt and the greenhouse effect combined to create storms more powerful and more frequent than modern humanity has ever observed. The Great Barrier Reef is an ancient, resilient organism that has been adapting to changing weather conditions for millennia. If it can't stand up to the forces of climate change, what does that say about humanity itself? Another massive cause of coral loss within the Great Barrier Reef is the newfound prevalence of invasive species. It's estimated that 42% of all reef loss over the last few decades can be attributed to creatures like the crown of thorns starfish, which is native to the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea. The starfish feed on coral and have few natural predators, making a large, isolated region like the Great Barrier Reef perfect for it to thrive as an invasive species. Recent human activity has provided the perfect conditions for the starfish to explode in population. Climate change has created a rapid increase in ocean temperatures around the world, and in the Great Barrier Reef region, temperatures have risen by more than 2 degrees Celsius. That's far more than the worldwide average. Chemical runoff, too, has helped the crown of thorns starfish, as nitrogen-heavy fertilizers seep into the ocean from coastal sugar plantations. Both of these conditions, as well as the overfishing of natural predators, has created an epidemic of crown of thorns starfish in the Great Barrier Reef. But oceanic warming and chemical runoff have another devastating effect on the reef: coral bleaching. This is a panic response displayed by coral when environmental conditions change. Coral derives its bountiful color from the algae that lives on its surface. The coral and algae essentially feed off each other, living in a symbiotic relationship, which is vital to the survival of both organisms. However, when ocean waters warm or change their chemical makeup, coral can eject the algae away from itself. This results in a stark white color, hence the term bleaching. Here, we can see coral in the act of ejecting its symbiotic algae, causing a fluorescent coloring. This is a violent and costly survival tactic. If environmental conditions do not return to normal quickly, the coral remains bleached for too long, and it will certainly die within a few days. Recent bleaching events are largely due to long-term environmental factors, and therefore, the conditions never return to normal. So vast swaths of the Great Barrier Reef have been permanently killed off due to bleaching. And this issue is getting much worse. While bleaching only accounted for around 10% of coral losses since 1985, recent ocean warming events starting in 2015-2016 have made coral bleaching one of the most urgent threats to the reef today. Bleaching now accounts for half of all new coral loss, and will only increase in urgency as temperatures continue to rise. Climate change is affecting the Great Barrier Reef in many different ways, and its effect will continue to grow as temperatures continue to rise. Now, there are several efforts underway to mitigate the effects of climate change on the reef. Australian scholars have suggested a regulatory approach to limiting chemical runoff from sugar plantations by subsidizing the cost of installing more efficient fertilizing hardware. This has the goal of using less fertilizer, both minimizing chemical runoff as well as the use of less in total. On an international level, the Paris Climate Accord of 2015 aims to dramatically reduce emissions of greenhouse gases across the world, slowing the rate of climate change. As every challenge faced by the Great Barrier Reef is caused in part by rising temperatures, this would be the most effective long-term solution to saving the reef. And even in areas where the coral has died, it is possible to bring it back. Studies on reef fertilization have demonstrated that given the proper environmental conditions, coral cover can be seeded and nurtured back into existence with fertilization and cultivation techniques. Although the idea is small scale at this point, these techniques showcase promising outlooks for future efforts to protect the Great Barrier Reef. But in the present, the reef still faces incredible challenges. Climate change has caused irreparable harm to one of nature's greatest landmarks through more powerful storms, invasive species, and harsh environmental conditions. It is imperative that more resources be devoted to protecting what is left of the reef, and even more important, to slowing the rate of global climate change. Thank you.